Okay, already. This season, we're coaching someone through what so many of us go through.
I'm Alison.
I'm Michelle.
Meet Sophie. She stayed too long, she'll break up, she'll heal, she'll date, she'll spiral. She's you, she's us.
We'll walk with her and you through every phase, from heartbreak to wholeness.
If you're tired of the chaos and ready to thrive in singlehood and in love,
welcome to season 3. Oh,
that's
so
so
close.
good. So we've heard from Sophie for the first time, and she is Hey Sophie.
And you.
It's a great name. And to the listeners, thanks for listening.
Yeah, we're so excited.
Yeah.
Sorry. We said no digressing.
We said no digressing. But wait. Okay, this is the only time. We're getting into it.
Yeah.
So she's with her boyfriend. She's been with him for a couple of years, and she's having really, really bad arguments. And not these kind of little spats of, you didn't put the dishes away, blah, blah, blah. These really huge blown out arguments, and they're happening a lot. So she has a few questions for us. Let's kind of just go over them together and see what comes up. Yeah. And the first question she had for us, what are the most common topics couples argue about? Because she was saying things like, it's anything comes up, anything is worth an argument. And she's just a bit worried that are they in the norm or outside the norm?
Yeah, because I think with any relationship, there's gonna say with quotation marks, the normal arguments or the things that, okay, fine, we're in a relationship, we're all the time together, arguments are going to happen. But then there's also the arguments that are just too intense and just too frequent, and they may be about silly things, or it may seem about silly things, but often they run deeper. And so that's why I think it makes it so difficult to really distinguish the two a lot of times, because there's a lot of things that boil and bubble under our skin. And, as humans, we like to hold things in for way too long and not talk about them. Healthy communication. Yeah. And so that makes it much harder to really understand if this is a normal argument or if not, because we often use these silly, stupid things to react from like past things that happen, or like emotions that we've been holding up inside us. And like, it's just like, and that's why a lot of times it's good to talk about things in advance, because then it's just spewing out everything that's happened in the past, however long it was.
Yeah, I agree. And I think to Sophie, I would say couples argue about absolutely everything, because it's the cliche thing that kind of you would get upset and angry at the people that you love the most. And it's cliche and it's annoying, but it's the truth. I think that what you need to worry about is the frequency of the arguments and like what constitutes an argument. If I don't know. So, for example, me this morning, JT let our baby cry. The agreement is he does the first feeding, I do the second. And this morning, for the first feeding, he just got up and did everything that needed to be done, but left the baby next to me crying. But the idea is that he takes the baby and I don't have to hear the baby, and I do the same for him later. And so I tell him, the point of you doing the first feeding is that I don't have to sit through the crying. That's not an argument, An argument is really like getting frustrated with each other and not hearing each other talk and just kind of like not coming to a solution straight away. And I think if you're having those arguments like, once in a while, like maybe once a month or once every couple of months, that's okay. Sophie is like, this is practically daily now. And it's about everything, because there are the big topics of like money, career, kids, like health and hygiene, things like that. Those are the big topics. Plus all the other little things like, socks in the dryer and, on the floor and cooking and doing the dishes and all, whatever. And her is like every single day, practically a huge argument. And that's the problem. You don't want that. That doesn't look healthy. Arguing is
Yeah.
okay. I would say arguing is healthy,
Hmm.
but too much arguing, just like anything is healthy, but too much of it is not healthy.
Yeah. And that ties in with her second question is like, what is unhealthy arguing in relationship? And how can we argue in a healthier way to avoid damaging our relationship? I will say that I believe that, you know, yes, it's okay to argue about everyday things. And I think it really isn't about, I mean, it is about what you're arguing, but it's more than that. It's how you're arguing. Because you can have an argument about whatever it is, whether it's a daily minuscule topic of like who's doing the dishes, and if it's something deeper of like I'm always doing the dishes and you just take me for granted and I'm just frustrated. But the question is, are you arguing about it to win the argument with quotation marks? Are you arguing about it to hurt the other side, to bring them down? Because that's the unhealthy part about it, in my opinion, or the unhealthiest part about it is where you're coming into this argument with the intention of winning the argument, of
Yeah.
being the right person, of the other person admitting they're wrong and making them feel bad. That is not a healthy argument. I think the healthiest way you can do this is to bring it up calmly, talk about it, express yourself, and be open to their expression of themselves and their opinions and their thoughts and feelings, and understand that there's no wrong or right over here. And if you're arguing to win the argument, then you're both losing. At the end of the day, you want to win this argument together because, I mean, if the common goal in the end isn't coming out of this argument stronger and better for the future, then there's no point of arguing. Just move on to the next person. I mean, healthy, I mean, there's, I mean, obviously you're going to argue and that's fine. I mean, to each their own. But Zev and I don't like arguing. We like to have calm communication. So that's why we always like try to talk about things in just like an everyday manner. And if something bothers us,
Mm.
we say it right away. We don't let it pent up inside us because then that gets you more frustrated and then they're building one on top of the other. So I would say like the unhealthiest thing is how you say it and why you're saying it in such a way. And then also just just letting things pile up.
Yeah, I mean, completely agree with you. And I think, I don't know about you, but I'm like, I'm 3 months postpartum. I'm a bucket of hormones.
Mm.
And sometimes I can feel myself getting angry. But I take a step back and I kind of just look at the situation. Am I getting angry because it's legit? Because sometimes, completely legit to get angry for any number of reasons. And sometimes it is just, being tired, being overworked, being stressed. And what really helps me in communicating with JT is that kind of I force myself into kind of taking a step back and then saying, listen, I can feel myself getting angry and aggravated. I'm just gonna stop the communication and we'll start again a bit later,
Yeah.
And I'll just add that, having arguments, you can, there's having a spat and then, kind of jabbing each other. And then there's having, raised voices and heated discussion. And then there's an argument. And I think the first two are fine. And especially with a heated discussion, because you're not going with the same intention. I think argument, like you want to win and you want to kind of bring the other down a little because there's that anger and you want to, stop things from getting there. And it is so difficult to do. It is so difficult.
Yeah, because there's that internal need as a human to be right. And I think one of the most difficult things we can do is admit that we're wrong and say we're sorry. But that said, I think that it gets easier with time. And for me, I feel like the time I took to be with myself and to be independent, strong woman without needing anyone else and just taking advantage of my life, it helped me let go a bit of the ego, which I think that's a lot of times why arguments get to the extreme, is because of ego. And when you're so comfortable with yourself and you've been through this journey of having a healthy relationship, then you also have a healthy relationship with your partner, and the communication is better because you both just don't care about ego anymore. You know that it's the number one cause of all of these problems, and it's just making everything harder and more hurtful and more difficult. So first of all, I would look inwards a lot of times, like see what journey I've been through and how I can let go of that communication type. What was the other thing I was going to say that you were talking about beforehand? Anyway, I think
That
also we have to take things with a grain of salt. We're talking about like the frequency and how it happens, when it happens. I think you also have to understand, are you on a 5 week trip to Thailand and you're with each other way more than normal? And it's okay to have these arguments. And it's okay to have a spat when you're living together and you're with this person all the time. So not, getting overly emotional and overly excited over, you know, things that are just circumstantial, and just understanding when you need to take it, take a look from closer and analyze the situation. And I think what helps us the most is to talk about it calmly and regularly, even when there aren't any arguments, just having open communication all the time. And often you were saying beforehand about how you need to take a step back. And I think that's one of the healthiest things you can do, is if you're feeling like you're getting way too emotional and way too into your head or into your thoughts and emotions, whatever it is, then yes, take a step back, relax, and just then come back to it later. A lot of times Ev says that what he does, if something annoys him, he will wait with it. He won't spew it out in the moment, and then just it comes out heated. He will wait to cut for him to think it through, digest it, even think about how he can say it. And later on, it may seem suddenly like insignificant, and maybe there's no need to talk about it because in the heat of the moment, we might feel like it's such a big deal, but then we realize it isn't. Or he'll have, a whole new perspective about it, and he'll be able to talk to me about it much better, if you get what I mean.
Yeah, I get what you mean. It kind of ties into the to her last couple of questions of like constant argument in a relationship and can a relationship survive it? Of like you were
Mm.
talking about the 5 weeks in Thailand and seeing each other more, and it's okay. And so first, what you said about Zev and like sitting with it and maybe kind of not needing to talk about it, I would just say if it was something at any point, I would just say talk about it, even though it doesn't seem as big the next day. If it was big at one point, I feel it would probably become big again at another point. So I think, I mean, and again, like Zev's a big boy and he can kind of decide for himself. But I think just letting oh, by the
Yeah.
way, this wasn't cool. I think it is always a healthy way of doing things.
Yeah, it's definitely
But
better than holding it in, and especially if you're unsure about it.
yeah, but it's definitely not normal to argue constantly. I
No,
know this couple.
go on.
I know this couple. The way they communicate is so aggressive and like passive aggressive constantly. And I find it so unhealthy. And there's like, yeah, but we don't argue. And it's just like you need to. It's a form of arguing. Like being passive
Mhm.
aggressive is just you know. And I would say unless you're both kind of sadists and masochists and like and really really enjoy the arguing kind of event, I would say just don't force it. It's like argue sometimes. You just can't avoid it. I mean, even the best relationships end up arguing at least once every couple of years. Like, it just
Yeah.
has to happen. But if you're arguing constantly, like Sophie is every day or practically every every day. I have trouble believing that two people in a relationship enjoy arguing. Because I get it. I get the idea of the adrenaline and getting it all out, but it's just not healthy. It's just there are other ways of getting that adrenaline out than trying
Yeah.
to hurt somebody else. Because that's what arguing is, really. It's you were upset about something and you want the other person to kind of pay for it, really.
Yeah, I think this often happens with people who just have different communication types or just have some kind of diff it, what's the word I'm looking for? My God. Anyway, I think I'll just move on to something else that I was going to say. There's there are quite a few well, not a lot, but there's a couple of couples that I know that argue a lot, or they used to argue a lot. And first of all, I don't think it only impacts them and their relationship, it also impacts the people around them. Because often when people argue too much, they also argue around everyone. They don't care where they are, if they're out and about, if they're
Yeah,
at a restaurant, with family, with friends, whoever it is, they're gonna argue and they're gonna forget maybe that they're with people. They have to get that
yeah.
jab in, and they just can't stop and they can't let it go. And that just makes people not want to be around you. That makes people be scared to make plans with you. And and I think that's also something to take into consideration here when you're arguing all the time. It impacts everyone and makes everyone feel awkward.
For sure.
And it means maybe like you don't go out as much because you can't, because you don't know where you're gonna end up and what's gonna happen. And also, between the two of you, you argue so much that it just you forget how to communicate properly. And so I think you either work through it and you go see someone who helps you out and helps you through it, or you learn how to communicate better and why this is happening. And I think what helps a lot of times is to catch yourself in the moment, take a step back, understand why you're reacting from such a place, because
Mm.
there's something inside you that's causing you get like this pent up emotions, and you're like, you can't you almost can't control yourself on what comes out, and you get all frustrated and angry, and yes, the other person may be bringing it out on you, but there's also something inside you that's making you get all heated up instead of trying to react calmly and also listen and also hear what the other person is trying to say, because a lot of times that gets lost in the pent up emotions.
Yeah, I agree, and I think you adding if you what you said about being around other people is so spot on because Sophie actually said like I feel like our friends are embarrassed to be around us, so
Yeah.
it's exactly you if you're you know because if you're arguing so much in your private time, it is for sure leaking into your kind of social time as well. If you
Yeah.
are even going out, and
Yeah.
because sometimes you get trapped into kind of such a bad mood that you don't want to go out anymore. But yeah, I would tell Sophie, let's tell Sophie just to take a step back. If she feels the argument going up, actually talk to him about it and say, listen, let's just kind of take a breather, stop talking, and then regroup, like, even if it's just 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
once you're snowballing otherwise, even if it's just 10 minutes. And then if he, either he accepts, either he doesn't accept. And if he doesn't accept, I think it says a lot about him. Because who wants to make their partner feel bad and argue all the time?
Yeah, and if they do, then that's exactly. I think that's also the root cause of most of the arguments, is that and I know a couple like this where he has a lot of issues, but he's refusing to really work through them, and he's constantly blaming her, like she's the problem and she's the one who needs to work through it, and basically gaslighting her into thinking that when she brings up something that he did that bothers her, then that
Mm.
blowing it up out of proportion. She's exaggerating. She's too emotional. She's seeing it all twisted and turned. And, I think that's a lot of times what happens when a couple argues so much. It's an indication of a lot of internal shit that's going on, pardon my French. But that's why I'm such an advocate for embracing singlehood, because I think you need to take advantage of this time alone to really work through these things with yourself and get to a healthier vantage point to start a relationship with another person and with friends and with family. I mean, this impacts a lot of people, not just a romantic partnership. I mean, knock on wood, I don't want to jinx it, but Zev and I maybe have an argument once a year, if even that. I think it's a lot of because we both did a lot of internal work before. And we've both learned together how to integrate that into our relationship. And, you keep learning and you keep improving. And, of course, in the beginning, we had a bit more arguments, but we worked through them. And one more thing I'll say that is, in my opinion, one of the number one reasons why so many couples argue is because it's kind of become normal. Because you say, that's what relationships are supposed to be like. You're meant to argue. And that's what you see around you. And that's what you're told. Don't like, I mean, you stay in the wrong relationship because you're afraid of being alone, or you don't know any better. And because that's what you see everyone doing, and that's what you see everyone saying is the right thing. So you're saying, fine, it's normal. We'll argue, even if it's about fundamental things that we just don't seem to agree on.
Yeah, completely agree. And what you were just saying is kind of answering and closing off the whole, can a relationship survive it? Yes, obviously. And I think, there's two ends of the thing. Like, you don't want to be arguing all the time and staying with somebody who you argue with all the time, like on one end. But on the other end, you don't want to be breaking up after a single argument. You want to work through, through them. This is, on one end, an argument can be something really toxic and negative and degrading even. But on the other end, it can be an opportunity to evolve and to grow. And you want to, exactly as you guys did, and what we guys, us guys, did as well. It's like, there's an argument, and so the way we function is that the arguments really creep up on us. Like what I said earlier about kind of catching myself, it's only been like the last few months, but at the beginning, like they would just really catch us by surprise. And so we had the argument, and then I finished like, okay, I love you, I'm going now. Because our rule, we have 3 rules. Always finish a conversation with I love you, never hang up the phone, and never walk away and slam the door. Never. No matter what.
Good rules to have.
Never. It's just no matter what. It's out of respect. Even if in that moment we're not loving each other or anything, like out of respect for the relationship, and even more today because we've got kids. Never do that. And so they would creep up on us. So we'd have the argument in our worst version of ourselves, and then give it some time, a couple of hours, maybe the next day, and then go back and just talk about it. And say, you messed up here, I messed up here. And like, pointing out the errors, but owning, because it's a 50-50 deal. It's even in, it is a 50-50 deal. Apart from some exceptions, obviously, we're not going to name, but there are exceptions as to everything. But it's a 50, if there's an argument, both people have responsibility.
Yeah, I think in every situation that you were part of, instead of seeking blame, just look at what you could have done differently and what you could do differently in the future and how you can use that to learn. Because again, in every situation that you were part of, even if it's just 5%, you still have a hand in it. And as a human with a healthy relationship with yourself and with others, and with being strong and confident, you are able to accept that and to grow from it and use it as a development tool. But I will say that it requires two people and you both have to be committed to it. So if the other person is fighting back and isn't willing to admit that they may be also in the wrong, or they aren't able to commit to growth and moving forward, then there's not much you can do about it. You have to both be in it. But I do agree that it is obviously possible to get out of it. I know the couples that I was talking about beforehand, at least one or two of them have moved past it and they no longer argue like they used to. And so it is possible. I will say that you also need to communicate about it in the day to day. So you also feel like, not every argument means that you have to break up and means that you have to for your relationship. So again, if you ask me, it's just talking about things every day, all the time. Not in a heavy kind of topic, but like, just light mood. Yeah,
I
anyway.
agree.
So hope that helped, Sophie. I hope you work through your arguments.
And let's talk about it again next week, see how it evolved.
Yeah, and let us also know, to you listeners at home, what kind of arguments have you been having and how do you solve them and how do you work through them? Okay.
Bye.
That's it for this episode of Pop Culture Cupid.
Thanks for hanging out with us. We're glad you're here.
Make sure to subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you're listening.
You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Reddit for more behind-the-scenes real talk.
And if you want to support the show, check us out on Patreon.
Until next time, be kind, be happy, be healthy, and remember, heartbreak isn't the end.
It's the plot twist.